At the age of 12, I decided to get more serious about acquiring a real professional puppet. Because up till then, of course, I was just using these toy puppets that you could get at a store. I learned about a ventriloquist museum in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. They had an amazing collection of ventriloquist figures that had been built over really centuries. Ventriloquists sometimes call them puppets, they call them figures, but there were some in their collection that were really very impressive because they had all kinds of cool movements on them. There was one in particular named Cecil, where the hair popped up, like if it gets scared, the hair pops up. The ears wiggle, the nose wiggles, the upper lip goes up, it sticks its tongue out. The eyes not only go back and forth, but they also go up and down, and they go crossed. So really cool movements on this. And as a 12-year-old, I was totally captivated. I was, well, how do you get one of those? Like, that is just so cool that it has all these movements on it. The curator of the museum kind of chuckled and said, well, this was made by the McElroy brothers, and they don't make them anymore. They made them back in the late 30s, early 40s. For just a short period of time. But just about every ventriloquist that comes into this museum is captivated by these ventriloquist figures that you're looking at. But they're impossible, basically, to get because they don't make them anymore. So I kind of shrugged my shoulders and I thought, well, that would be really cool to have something like that. But, that's obviously not going to happen. And because they were rare, they were also increasing in value. So even if you did find a McElroy that somebody had, it would be very expensive to acquire something like that. So years later, I was doing a show at a church, and a woman came up to me after the program, and she said, hey, my grandfather was a ventriloquist. He used to do what you do. And I now have the puppet, the dummy that he used in his act. And of course I'm like, oh, that's really neat. I know something about some of these old dummies. I might, depending on the era, I might actually know who made that particular dummy. What do you know about it? Do you know any information about where he got it or who might have made it for him? And of course I'm thinking it could be made out of paper mache. Who knows what kind of figure he used in his act. And she said, well, I don't know a whole lot about it. I do think that my grandfather said that it was made by a couple of brothers. And so, of course, I was like, just taken aback. And I said, well, does it by any chance have a lot of movements on it? Like, does the hair pop up? Does his nose wiggle? Do the ears wiggle? And she said, yeah, it has all that on it. And so I then said to her, okay, it sounds to me like you might have a figure that was made by the McElroy brothers. Now, if you do, I will be honest with you, if I have an opportunity just to see this thing, I might actually wet my pants. So just be aware of that. And she laughed. I said, but you also need to know that that is a very valuable piece. And I know that there are collectors out there who would potentially pay you a lot of money for that. But it would be so exciting for me just to have the opportunity to see it. I said, now, please understand too, you might not have a McElroy. I don't know. It sure sounds like you have one. But I won't know until I see it. But I will know. Because I know something about these things, and I know the way they made them and the controls and how they worked. I've really been a big fan of their work. I had this limited edition poster with the McElroy brothers signature that hung right above my desk, and I always just thought it was a cool thing to have. So she said, well, come on by tomorrow morning if you're still going to be around. I said, oh yeah, I'm spending the night here. Well, I barely slept that night. I just can't believe that this is even happening, that this woman might actually have an original McElroy in her home. The next day, went to her house, got there early, of course, and waited in my car until 9 o'clock, and then went up and knocked on the door. And she invited me in, and she had this figure sitting on her sofa, and I walked in and looked at it, and I knew right away. Not only was it an original McElroy, but it was the exact same face, because the McElroys made them all by hand, but they would do multiples of a given face. So it was the exact same face of the poster that had been looking at me for 7 years that I had hanging above my desk. And so I was just stunned. And it was in an incredible shape, very well cared for. And so I stood there looking at it, and I actually started to cry. Here was this puppet. But I just could not believe that I had actually found out there an original McElroy figure. And so she came over and she was kind of joking around. She said, "So are you going to wet your pants?" And I said, "Well, it really is an original McElroy figure. And it's in great shape. You've taken very good care of it. And obviously your grandfather took very good care of it." And she said to me, last night as I was driving home after we had this conversation, she said, "I had a little conversation with God." And she said, "God specifically told me that he has been saving this guy for you." And I was blown away. And I said, "Well, the thing is, I don't have a lot of money. These can be tens of thousands of dollars. But if I had this guy, I would perform with him. Like, he would immediately become a part of my act, because it's just been a dream of mine to actually perform with one of these figures. This has been a dream since I was 12 years old." And she said, "Well, that's why I want you to have him. Because if I sold him to some collector, then it's just going to sit behind glass somewhere. But I would love to see him back out in performance again, just like my grandfather used him." So we negotiated a price that was affordable for me. It was, thousands of dollars, but it wasn't tens of thousands. It was what I could afford. And that was acceptable to her. And I put this guy on my knee, and I just started to play with him, and
"Well, how you doing?"
it was just magical for me to begin the process of actually working him into my show. Just like I had seen at the museum, that I had never seen before on a puppet, was, the hair that pops up, like he gets scared. Like, "What?" He developed his own little personality that just kind of happens as a ventriloquist. As you're working with a puppet, there's something that just happens where the personality starts to come out as you're playing with it. And that became just such a special thing for me. And every time I use him, I'm reminded of God's grace to me, that he would allow me this gift. And at the end of the day, it's just a puppet, right? It's just a character. But for me, it was one of the most meaningful things that I could actually have the privilege of performing with this instrument, this puppet. That's how Mac, became a part of my family and a part of my act. So, of course, I'm a ventriloquist.
What?
I'm a ventriloquist.
No.
Yeah.
You're a ventriloquist, huh?
No, the word is ventriloquist.
That's what I said.
No, you didn't. Say ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist.
All right, sound it out.
Huh?
Sound it out like this. Ven.
What?
Repeat after me. Ven.
Then.
Good. Trill.
Trill.
O.
Oh.
Quist.
Quist.
Ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist.
Try it again.
What?
Faster. Ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist. Ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist.
No.